A Map of Thought, Episode 27, Manuel Castells. The most powerful organizations on Earth today do not have a capital city. Some of them barely have an address at all. Think about that for a second. For most of human history, power sat somewhere specific. A palace, a capitol building, a headquarters you could point to on a map and say, that is where the decisions get made. Manuel Castells spent his career arguing that this is no longer how power actually works, and once you see his argument, you will start noticing it everywhere.
Let us start with his core claim then. What replaced the palace and the capital?
The network. Castells argued that we live inside what he called the network society, a world where power increasingly flows through connections between nodes, banks, corporations, media platforms, activist groups, rather than sitting fixed inside any single hierarchical institution. And he built a genuinely useful distinction to explain how strange this feels compared to earlier history, the space of places versus the space of flows. The space of places is the world you can physically walk through, your neighborhood, your office, your country's border. For most of history, that was simply where power lived. The space of flows is different entirely. The invisible, constantly moving networks of capital, information, and decision, making that increasingly determine what happens inside those physical places, often without ever needing to occupy them directly. A decision made inside a trading algorithm, running on servers scattered across 3 continents, can reshape a factory town's entire future without a single decision maker ever setting foot there.
Give us the moment this shift actually became visible, historically.
Here is the part almost nobody realizes. This shift did not sneak up gradually. It has an actual starting gun, and it fired in the 1980s. Financial deregulation across the United States and the United Kingdom, combined with new computing and telecommunications technology, allowed capital to move across borders at a speed and scale that had simply never existed before. Money stopped needing to physically sit inside a specific bank vault in a specific city to do its work. It could flow continuously through a genuinely global network, restructuring entire national economies from outside, almost overnight, in ways that traditional governments, still organized around fixed territorial power, were often too slow to respond to. That is the space of flows overtaking the space of places, in real historical time, and Castells was one of the first scholars to name exactly what was happening while it was still happening.
And this same framework eventually got applied to something much more human than finance, did not it? Political protest.
Here is where this stops being abstract and starts being genuinely dramatic. In 2011, Castells watched something remarkable unfold across Tunisia, Egypt, and beyond, and he wrote an entire book trying to explain it, called Networks of Outrage and Hope. The Arab Spring protests organized with a speed that stunned governments built for a slower, more hierarchical world. No single charismatic leader planned the whole thing from a headquarters. Instead, networks of ordinary people, connected through social media and mobile phones, coordinated massive, rapid mobilizations that toppled governments that had held power for decades, sometimes within a matter of weeks. Castells' argument was that this was not simply protest using new tools. It was a genuinely new form of political power, built directly on network logic rather than traditional hierarchical organizing, capable of moving faster than any state built around fixed institutions and slow chains of command could reasonably respond to.
Let us bring this down to something a listener has actually lived through themselves, inside their own workplace.
Here is a test you can run on your own company right now, and it will tell you more than the official org chart ever could. Pull up your organization's formal chart, the neat boxes and reporting lines everyone signs off on. Now compare it honestly to who actually messages whom on Slack or email at 2 in the morning when something urgent breaks. Those two pictures almost never match. The real network of trust, speed, and influence inside most modern companies runs through informal connections that cut straight across the official hierarchy, and the people who genuinely hold power are often not the ones with the fanciest title on the chart, but the ones sitting at the busiest, most trusted node in the actual communication network. Castells would say the org chart is the space of places. The real Slack network is the space of flows. And the flows are usually where the real decisions actually get made.
So does this mean traditional, place-based power is simply becoming obsolete?
Not obsolete, just no longer the whole story, and this is worth being precise about, because Castells never argued that nations, governments, or physical institutions stopped mattering. Borders still exist. Armies still occupy territory. Courts still enforce laws tied to specific jurisdictions. What changed is that place-based power now has to constantly compete with, and often bend around, network-based power that does not answer to any single territory at all. A national government can still arrest a protester standing on its own soil. It has a much harder time controlling a hashtag, a decentralized funding network, or a piece of capital that can relocate to a different jurisdiction within seconds of a policy it dislikes being announced.
Before we get to current examples, I want to push on something. Does network power actually beat place-based power when they come into direct conflict, or is that overstated?
Genuinely mixed record, and worth being honest about it rather than declaring a clean winner. Watch how quickly capital can flow out of a country the moment investors dislike a new tax policy or a political shock, sometimes within hours, in a way that can force even a powerful national government to reverse course simply to stop the bleeding. That is network power winning decisively. But watch also how a determined state can still shut down internet access entirely within its own borders during a political crisis, physically seize server farms, or simply arrest people connected to a network it wants to break, and you see place-based power reasserting itself just as forcefully. Neither side has a permanent advantage. What Castells actually mapped was a new kind of ongoing contest between the two, not a story where networks simply and permanently defeated territory.
Where does this show up in the world right now, beyond the examples you have already given us?
Here is one nobody saw coming a decade ago. The rise of remote work has quietly done to entire cities what Castells' framework predicted decades in advance. Commercial office towers built around the assumption that work required physical presence in a specific downtown core have lost enormous value, while people and money have flowed toward wherever bandwidth and quality of life happen to be good, completely disconnected from any single employer's physical headquarters. That is the space of flows, quite literally reshaping the space of places, one empty office building at a time. And look at how traditional media gatekeepers, newspapers and television networks that once controlled almost the entire flow of public information through a small number of fixed institutional choke points, have lost enormous ground to genuinely networked information flows. Independent creators, decentralized platforms, encrypted group chats coordinating everything from mutual aid to political organizing, outside any traditional newsroom's control. Some of that shift has been genuinely democratizing. Some of it has made coordinated misinformation dramatically easier to spread at scale, with no editor anywhere in the chain to slow it down. Castells' framework does not tell you which outcome wins. It tells you exactly where to look for the fight.
Before we close, is there a fair criticism of this whole framework worth naming?
There is, and it deserves real weight. Critics point out that network romanticism can go too far, treating every leaderless, decentralized movement as automatically more legitimate or more powerful than traditional organizing, when in practice, plenty of network-driven movements have struggled badly to translate rapid online mobilization into durable, lasting political change. A hashtag can topple a news cycle far faster than a traditional political party ever could. It often struggles far more to actually govern afterward, precisely because it never built the patient, hierarchical institutions capable of holding power once the initial surge of attention fades. That tension between the speed of networks and the durability of institutions is exactly where our next episode picks up. Next time, we meet Zeynep Tufekci, who studied that exact gap up close, watching networked protest movements organize with breathtaking speed, from Cairo's Tahrir Square to Istanbul's Gezi Park, and then struggle, again and again, to hold onto power once the crowds went home. The network can win the moment brilliantly. Winning what comes after the moment turns out to be a completely different problem.
See you then.